We got our Classified Serpentor, and it's a really great looking toy. The figure and the air chariot together are pretty imposing, the detail's great, so let's jump in and check it out. So the box right from the start is really beautiful. I mean, it's one of these premium classified characters, so you expect the beautiful box art. There's a great kind of mural on the back showing Serpentor and all these different, kind of periods in time. And then the front is a cool split, kind of reminiscent of the mashups with the Transformers. So you got kind of Cobra on the upper left, and then Serpentor by himself. And then around the edges, just different kinds of like decals of like Cobra. So one thing, when you're opening it, there's a lot of tape all around it. So I'd recommend getting an X-Acto if you care about the packaging. I really like the premium packaging, so I want to make sure it's still like in good shape and stuff like that. So tried to take care. So, just like cutting the tape in certain spots. And then you can see the box slips apart, and you're left with this Cobra, kind of like the genetic code kind of symbol of Serpentor. With the Cobra symbol, it's kind of like the DNA double helix. It's pretty cool design. And then you open up the box, and it's just beautiful presentation. And so there's the main figure. He's got a lot of like different weapons and staffs, and then like a different kind of cowl headpiece, and then sort of these. I'm not familiar with them, but almost like Wolverine claws. I guess that were his weapon at some point. So to slip out the main tray, one thing I want to note for you guys is make sure you cut the tape inside, which I was surprised this tape was in here, and it keeps you from sliding the tray out. Not sure why they did this, but make sure you do this and don't just pull it off. It might rip or mess up your box. But after you do those two cuts, you're able to pull out the tray, and that's got the air chariot in some pieces, and then the main figure of Serpentor. And what's cool is he just pops right out. He's not rubber banded in. So just reach around and kind of pull him out. Again, you don't want to force this, but he comes out pretty easily. Maybe just be careful of the cape. It could catch in there, I guess, and like rip or tear. But on mine, it seemed to slip out like really easily. You could see the cape has nice detail on it. I thought it would just be like one color, but it's got that pattern in it. You can see all the little scales, just tons of texture and like different scales of texture that really like break up the character in a really nice way. He seems to articulate okay. I'm not like too into caring about how much articulation a character has, but I did notice that he's a little bit stiff. With this cowl on, you can't move his head, and you can see you've got to like pop it up to change it to like sort of like a different hat, and then he can move his head. But I really like how this cowl looks. I think it's a lot better than the other one. You can see his cape has a good weight, and all around he just feels like a really solid figure. And then the other part of this is the air chariot, which is really exciting. So it comes in a bunch of pieces, kind of like an old G.I. Joe vehicle, where you have to snap it together. The air chariot has a bunch of different pieces. So these are, it looks like 50 caliber cannons that mount on either side. And you just push the barrels in, they pop in really easily. There's sort of the Wolverine claw that Serpentor has on his wrist, and that pops in. I was a little bummed that you can't really show him without the claw because it like leaves a big hole in his arm. But I guess that's cool. I just, again, don't remember that from the comic or anything. And then there's the ammo belt, which is kind of funny. It like feeds from and into itself. So I guess it's just like this perpetual bullet machine or something like that. I think it would have been cooler if they just kind of had it like go into the body of the air chariot, so it looked like maybe there were canisters of ammo inside the chariot's body, and that's what fed into this. But I guess it makes sense. It allows for articulation of the blasters, up and down, without having to worry about this kind of always disconnecting, which can be a problem with like tubes and stuff like that when you have a lot of motion. And then so you take these and they just pop in. I didn't even look at the directions. It's really easy to go together, and it's not much to it. But the way I'm holding that, like when you feel it in hand, the plastic on this feels really good, like the air chariot. Like, I hope they do more vehicles, and especially for the 3 3/4, like of this quality and this kind of like level of detail. All right, so I don't want to show me cutting everything out of the box. The major thing is getting this, the big like cobra head like onto it. Just make sure you really push it down and that it like really seats itself in and pops in. You know, it might take like a decent amount of pressure, but then you can see I've already got the handlebars in, and I think that's it. You know, as far as, oh yeah, and then these like kind of like vertical stabilizers that go on the side, which is just like the, you know, it looks a lot like the original toy, which is pretty neat. It looks like they updated it a little bit, you know, gave it, of course, like a little more detail, but it's pretty true to like what you'd expect his air chariots, I feel like. And there it is. It looks really nice and it feels really good. So yeah, there's that snake. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I couldn't really figure out a good way to have like it on the air chariot or do anything with it. I guess, you know, if you have a throne or something like that, you could, you know, just use it to kind of like decorate his throne room or something. It's nice because the air chariot has two pegs for his feet and it really pegs in nicely. I noticed if you don't bend his legs, you won't be able to like really hold the, I guess like the handlebars. And this is when I noticed the joints are like really stiff. So I really had to like, you know, use some strength to bend his knees. And yeah, I didn't want to break him or anything like that, but he was fine. So I found that you have to bend him like that, kind of put him in that like kind of silly squatting position first, and then really get his feet to lock in. And then it's just a matter of like slipping his hand onto the end of the handlebar, which is pretty easy. You know, it's just like any of the motorcycles or, you know, any kind of grip like that. The one foot popped off, but it's easy enough to put it in. And then once he's got a grip on this and has his, you know, the feet and the foot pegs, is really solid. All right, and here's a comparison. You can see the ram cycle next to Serpentor on his air chariot. And it's a lot bigger. I mean, even in this image, it doesn't look that much bigger, but it's way wider and just feels like way more massive. Especially if you're going to like display this on the shelf, it's going to take up a bit more room. And there's Beachhead on his little whale cycle. And there's Snake Eyes on a bigger kind of custom bike. All right, so let's look over the figure and the air chariot. You can see up close the amount of detail they put into the sculpting. It's really nice. Not a huge fan of those like exposed rivets. I think that makes it feel a little old. Like I kind of like the more futuristic vibe. But man, look at the face sculpt. It's really great. It photographs really well. And then again, all the detail, all the different texturing with the scales, and then even in the fabric, and then the detailing on those 50 cals is really nice. Below there's these landing gear and different panels. The landing gear I found kind of useless because when you push down on it, it collapses and it kind of supports itself anyway. All right, I didn't want to leave this out, so then I opened up the side panels and just wanted to see what the deals was with the other cowl and helmet. And so you can see it's like two different pieces, and then there's the more extended kind of Wolverine claw thing. So there's the helmet. You know, which is just really like a hat that pops on his head. And then, yeah, there's the claw, which I ended up like putting this onto my figure and leaving that one on. Just thought it looked more interesting than the short one. And this just slides in there. So to change out the heads, it's really easy. You just pop that up and pop off the back. You know, just put that aside. And then it's almost the same thing, but just in two pieces. So you can see it's, you know, equivalent scale. There's more detail in the one that isn't connected to the back of his head. I guess because, you know, you might be able to see back there. So you pop that in and then pop on the head and you're good to go. I don't like how narrow this is. It's not much wider than his head. And I really like how in the original figure, you know, it kind of flared out. It felt like a bigger, larger helmet. This is almost like form-fitting. And so not as much a fan of that look. So I just went back to the other one. I mean, it's a little bit of a bummer he can't turn his head, you know, when he's wearing this, but I just think it looks so much better. All right, so let's see him up against other guys. So here he is next to Beachhead, and he just dwarfs him. I mean, Serpentor is gigantic. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's supposed to be. He's like this huge, you know, like, you know, just combination of all these great warriors. So, you know, he's just like a giant giant warrior dude. And then here you can see the size, better view of the size of the air chariot next to the ram cycle. And you can really get a sense of like how much bigger it is. So here we have Serpentor with the original Serpentor, and you can see it's pretty true to it. It's a really good like modernized, updated representation. The helmet's not quite as wide. I was talking about the width of the helmet, but I like this one. It kind of gives a little bit of the width and gets that feel without being like too overwhelming and too over the top. So overall, I think this is just a pretty amazing toy. Probably the coolest classified I've gotten. I really like getting these sort of specialty sets, and this one just really knocks it out of the park with the packaging, the extra vehicle, and the figure. There's just so much detail here, so much sculpting, and it all comes through in the toy, and just makes a beautiful like combination, like him on the air chariot. And I'm still always conflicted because I'm a 3 3/4 inch collector, so I kind of don't like these 6-inch figures, but they're so nicely made. I just can't resist getting these. I definitely cherry pick, and this is one of the ones I decided to get. I was still conflicted, but now that I have it in hand, I'm so glad I got it. It's just a really beautiful piece and really cool representation of the 80s GI Joe. Just seeing it side by side with the original Serpentor, it's pretty true to it, but yes, updated in a really cool way. And Serpentor is a pretty iconic kind of character, especially for me. I loved Rise of Serpentor, the cartoon, and in the comic book, he just made like things like way more interesting with kind of like all his like trying to take over Cobra and who's going to be in charge. So definitely recommend this beautiful toy. Really well done. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you found it interesting. I hope we'll see you in the next video. And yo, Joe.